Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Speaking Spurs and me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. We get to talk about a little bit of positivity of a 3-1 victory in the Premier League that keeps us in the top four. A bit about Conte and his bounce coming back, whilst also a lot of anger in the press conference in the build-up to the game. A bit about Richarlison's controversy that might have actually been a good thing for him on a personal level. The curious case of Arnaut Danjuma, and just a bit about the players and the state of the club in general. So, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to support the video with a like, and as always, post your comments below. And all of those things just take a couple of seconds. Just hit a button. Anyway, let's jump into it. So the 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest, it keeps us in the top four for now. And it was important to get the win. Liverpool lost their game. Which is hilarious because you go and smash Manchester United 7-0 and then you go and lose 1-0 to Bournemouth. It almost seems pointless to have got the victory over Manchester United for anything other than bragging rights. But hey ho, for the first time in what seems like forever, we took advantage of a situation where somebody had given us an opportunity to create a gap in points. Normally that doesn't happen. We get given an opportunity and we crumble. But we didn't, and it was lucky as well because Newcastle managed to win their game. However, Brighton, who have got a couple of games in hand, and if they win those, I think they've got three in hand, and if they win those, they can go level on points of us. But they were held to a draw, and also Manchester United, if they lose their game in hand, sitting in third, they'll stay there, but will only be 2 points off of them. So third isn't out of the realms of possibility. The performance itself, it was better than what we've seen recently. We were more attacking. We were better in the first half. It was, however, Nottingham Forest. Poor team away. I think before they played us, there was only, 3 away goals in the Premier League. They obviously got a goal against us. They missed a penalty. But they offered very little in the centre of midfield. At times, Oliver Skipp was seen walking, and I mean it, walking with the ball between their midfielders, which is terrible. They offered absolutely nothing. So this is why I'm saying, even though it looked like a better performance from us, I feel like we can't get too carried away. We can't take too much away from it. It's good in the sense that it would have built the players' confidence, getting a win and being able to control more elements of a game. Hopefully that'll encourage that pattern of play to occur more often, but still, it's Nottingham Forest, so let's not get too carried away. I feel they made it very easy for us to be able to finally dominate a game, rather than this boring style of football where we sit back, win the ball and go on a counter. So we had more time on the ball than we normally would have. We did kind of let them back into the game a bit in the last 20 minutes. I think that was probably down to a bit of mental fatigue. It's been a long 10 days for the club. A lot has gone on. So yeah, we allowed them back into a bit. They obviously got the goal. They then got the penalty, which was saved by Fraser Forster. We'll talk a bit about him later. But for us, the biggest tests are yet to come. We've got a bit of a favourable period coming up with some of the lower down teams. And then we have a hard patch coming. And then it kind of eases up towards the back end of the season for us. And we'll talk about that in a bit as well. I've got written down the running of the teams. Now let's talk about the players. Fraser Forster didn't have too much to do until the second half when he saved low from Brennan Johnson. He then made a terrific reaction save to keep out former Spurs player Serge Aurier's close range header from a corner before then saving with his leg, this time from Dennis moments later. He did, however, come out and he missed his punch from the corner, leaving Worrell to head home behind him. But he made up for it with a good penalty save from Ayew in added time. Could he end up being Spurs' best signing of the summer? Now, this is something that Alistair Gold has been talking about, and he maybe could be. We didn't expect that he would come in and have to make this kind of impact. We didn't know that Hugo Lloris was going to have this injury for a long spell. Eric Dyer's been talking about Fraser Forster, saying how important he's been, how good he's been. And since he's been in, apart from twice where he's kind of parried the ball out a bit centrally for players to pounce on, he's been pretty good. His distribution is much better than Hugo Lloris's as well. Very good with his feet. He doesn't look it, but he actually is. Then let's talk about the back three. Christian Romero. All eyes were going to be on him after his poor discipline against AC Milan that ultimately cost us a chance to get back into that game. That's been spoken about by Conte, and he's saying that that is the only thing holding him back from being a top player, after that latest red card. And he did keep that in check throughout this game. He played an excellent first time pass through to Richarlison in the build up to the third goal. All in all, good from him. Eric Dyer back in the defence after his suspension against AC Milan. Didn't do too much wrong in the centre of the back three. Typical Eric Dyer performance. Clement Longley back on the left side of the back three after the stint in the centre. Played a couple of passes that put Spurs in trouble, but he was also in the wars with a few bruising encounters. Not his best performance, but not his worst. So all in all, good from them. The wing backs, Pedro Porro in for Emerson Royale. Now Royale's still got a bit of a knock. He's having a bit of trouble with his knee, but it's fine because it gives Pedro Porro a chance to get some minutes and bed into the team, and he did just that. He registered his first Tottenham assist with a perfect curling cross onto Kane's head 20 minutes in. He was also involved in the second goal with a lovely little chip ball to Harry Kane in the build-up to Richarlison being fouled for the penalty. He looked really bright and clearly far more confident now in his place in the Spurs team. So really good from him. On the other side, Perisic on the bench for Ben Davies. And he did his part in keeping us in contention. I feel like for a guy that is clearly his best position is left side of centre-back, he's always been an okay left-back. But at left wing-back, and bearing in mind he's not getting any younger, he's doing a good job. He's getting up and down. Defensively, he's still solid. He's making runs, dummy runs. I feel like it helped Sonny. But yeah, he's doing well out there. Everything that needs to be done. He kept the move alive for Kane's opening goal. Sliding in to get the ball and then pass into Forest's box. He might have got tighter to Worrell for Forest's goal, but he did force Navas into a flying save with a header at the other end. So all in all, good from him again. The middle two, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Skippy. So the Dane was a controlling presence in the centre of the pitch. He was making important runs, not just in an attacking sense, in a defensive sense as well. Very typical dominant display from him. Then his partner, Oliver Skipp, he's just going from strength to strength after coming back from his injury. He's coming back to a place where he's starting to look like the player that we saw previously. Really dominant. He played this amazing diagonal pass into the path of Richarlison for that goal that was disallowed for offside. And if that had been De Bruyne, we'd have been saying how great that was. Well, we know how great it was, but people elsewhere would have been saying, oh, what a pass, what a pass. So really happy for Skippy, proving what a player he is and can be. Then talking about the front three. So we'll start with Kane in the middle. He linked up play well throughout the game. Sent a trademark header into the far corner from Porro's cross 20 minutes in. He has a habit of doing this. He manages to just push the ball over to the opposite corner really nicely. Played a lovely nutmeg pass to Richarlison, which led to the penalty. He then struck that one home, and that's great because for him that was the first penalty he's had to take since that miss against Hugo Lloris in the Qatar World Cup. And he's now just 5 Premier League goals behind second place Wayne Rooney in the all-time Premier League goal scorer rank. So congratulations to him. Moving on to Sonny, the guy that's been out of form pretty much the whole season. Lively from the start, spread the ball around really well and with confidence. He got his reward in the second half with a composed touch and finish from Richarlison's cross. He looked more like the old Sonny, constantly threatening with a few shots blocked or saved, and he put in a great cross for Davies, which was headed at goal late on and saved. It's much better from him. He looked more confident. And is there an argument it's because Perisic is not playing? Possibly. They do occupy similar places on the pitch when we are in attack. So then there is maybe an argument for that. But nonetheless, much better. Then let's talk about the other man. He came in on the right-hand side, replacing Kulusevski. And that's Richarlison, Mr. Controversy himself. He did his part in every way. He was involved throughout, non-stop, everywhere on the pitch. Back in the team. He thought he'd open the scoring. Just to have it taken away by VAR. It's so hard to tell whether it was or wasn't when the ball was played. And he just needs that goal for his confidence. Like in my eyes, he scored 2 goals that have been ruled out for offside. And what a finish it was. It was so emphatic. He absolutely walloped it. It was a great run as well. Great ball from Davies. Good move. and it deserved the goal. But nonetheless, it didn't let him get his head down. He carried on battling throughout. He played his part in Kane's opening goal, battling down that right hand side. He was then brought down for the penalty that Kane then scored. He ran down the right, and at the second attempt, so the first cross that he put in, he played this lovely ball that if the defender hadn't got in the way of, it was going straight onto Son's boot. Lovely cold ball. But he then got the ball when it had been rebounded out and played the cross into Sonny, and the rest was history. He still needs that goal himself. Obviously, he's still only got the 2 in the Champions League, but a great display from him. And on Spurs official, he was voted by the Tottenham fans as man of the match. So, congratulations to him. So let's talk about his controversy. Obviously, he gave that interview where he'd been not just talking about the club, but himself. Basically said that he's used an expletive word for poo. He's had a poo season. He's had a couple of injuries. One early on in the season, then one after the World Cup. Had up and down form. He admitted himself he hasn't justified the 60 million price tag. But nonetheless, look, he's not been given enough minutes, and I know there's a lot of fans out there that are on his back. He's not had enough minutes to perform consistently. I don't care what anyone says. The Richarlison that we saw against Forest is the Richarlison that we signed. Aggressive, non-stop running, getting in people's faces, just everywhere. A nuisance. That's the guy that we signed. And with regular minutes, we could see better than that consistently. It's just hard because Sonny's done so much over the years. It's hard to drop Sonny. Then Kulusevski has been so impactful, and he's a guy that works really hard. So it's a difficult one. But in the interview, he basically talked about that. And then he did have a moan. He said that he played well against West Ham, well against Chelsea, and then was told before the Milan game, when he had a late fitness test, if you pass that test, you're going to be starting. He passed the test, did not start the game. We get knocked out of the competition. He was very emotional afterwards, hence the interview. The guy that he done the interview with is somebody that he knows well that covers Brazilian football. That's why that came out. Probably felt comfortable, eased into it. Was a bit naive in giving the interview, but nonetheless, it obviously done him a favour. He apologised, was back in the lineup, So who's to know? Maybe it was a good thing from him. Right, now let's talk about the subs. Kulusevski came on and almost scored with a good shot on the run. That was saved. But he then gave away the penalty with a handball. He was fortunate to see Ben Foster save that spot kick. Lucas Moura came on again. Didn't offer too much in his short cameo. And then Pap Matassar was brought on for the final moments for Skippy. And both Richarlison and Skip, when they came off the pitch, albeit at different times, both of them received a standing ovation from the Spurs fans, which is really good to see. So, now we've spoken about the game and Richarlison's controversy, let's talk about Danjuma. The curious case of Danjuma, the guy brought in right at the end, snatched from under the noses of Everton. He'd done his interviews, he'd done his pictures with the shirt, only to be pulled into Spurs. For what? Clearly not a signing that Conte wanted. He's basically said it himself. It was a club signing. He's given him the treatment of Jed Spence. Difference is he can't get rid of him in the transfer window because we brought him in January. So, the guy's he's not getting it. And it shows the lack of communication and direction within Spurs. Who signed him? Why did they sign him? Was it just a signing that was there to be had and keep the Spurs fans happy? Essentially, the front three, the two wide men, when Kane is pushing forward, become two number 10s. When Kane is dropping deep, they then become auxiliary strikers. And I don't think he sees Danjuma as that type of player. Danjuma can play very wide. He's quick. He does these great one-time flick passes. He loves a back-heeled pass. Bit of a flair player. He can also play as a second striker. Now, Conte's basically said he was a club signing, although he did mention that in the Champions League game, had Romero not been sent off, he was going to bring Danjuma on to play up top and give us another attacking threat in that game. But it seems like a pointless signing. I feel sorry for the guy. He could have gone to Everton, and even though they're in a relegation battle, he'd have been playing a lot of minutes at Everton, putting his name in the shop window permanently for the summer for a decent team, or maybe even stay at Everton. The fact is, at Spurs, he's having barely any minutes. He's probably going to go back. This is a guy that scored 6 Champions League goals last season. He's no mug. He's a good player. Not getting minutes here, and unfortunately, it's just kind of holding up his career, and I do feel sorry for him. Now let's talk about Conte as a whole. In his press conference before the Nottingham Forest game, he was very fiery, very feisty. Great for the journalists, they loved it. Normally it's very boring, a Conte interview, a bit like the style of football that he plays. But in this, he was coming out swinging, he was moaning that they always ask him about his future. So let's just narrow that down. His future. He signed a 1.5 year contract at Spurs. Normally managers get a 3. The reason he got given a year and a half, it's a different type of club than what he's used to. The teams that he's done in the last, 5, 10 years are teams that sit up the top of the league, that are pushing for titles. We are not. We're a team that traditionally tries to break into the top 4. Okay? So it's not what he's used to. It's a tighter budget than what he's used to as well. He's used to being able to get whatever players he wants, in a nutshell. That's not that type of club. So a year and a half gave the club time to get used to him and see what type of manager he is at a club, and time for him to see what kind of a club Spurs is, what it's like working in a club with a slightly smaller budget, different ambitions. And with that, it means if it doesn't work out, you haven't got to pay someone out for a long-standing gardening leave, which we had to do under like Poch and Mourinho. You pay their money until they find a job or until the contract they had runs out. So a year and a half gives you that flexibility, very sensible from both parties. So there is a chance that he still stays. There's a lot of rumours that he's going to go. But look, if he stays, and this is difficult, we won't talk about that yet. One of the other things he was saying is that the Tottenham fans have their patience has finished. And he's right, he's not moaning at us. He's basically saying, because of Tottenham's past of not winning a trophy and not quite getting over the line in our moments where we finished second in the league, we finished third twice. We essentially should have won the league and somehow managed to finish third in a 2-horse race, which is crazy to think. But the Tottenham fans, myself included, it's frustrating because we feel like we should have moved on by now. More investment should have happened. Conte's come in at a very bad time. Mourinho got us to final and then was sacked the week before, so Daniel Levy and the club could avoid paying out money for him to win that, knowing that they were still going to sack him anyway. And then we ended up losing it, which isn't Ryan Mason's fault. He was put in an awkward position. So the fans have run out of patience, and I think it's partly because of the style of football as well. Had Conte put a stronger squad out, and I know he wasn't there on the day, but had there been a stronger squad against Sheffield United, had we pushed harder in the Cups last season and won a trophy, you can kind of take the boring style of football a little bit, had it showed fruition other than finishing in the top 4. But the fact is it didn't. So we're playing boring football and we haven't won something. Exciting football and not winning something, at least it gives us something to look forward to each week. So it's kind of like having the best of a bad situation. Whereas this way around, we kind of feel like we're getting a bad situation twice, boring football and not winning anything. Do I think Conte is a manager that can win us a trophy? Yes, I do. But unfortunately, and he's right, we need to have patience. And we haven't got that at the moment. He's come in at a very bad time. Had this have been a few years back, I think it would have been different. We would have had the patience because we knew towards the end of the Pochettino era that we needed another rebuild. But the problem with that, we then had Jose Mourinho. We've then had, why do I always forget his name? Nuno. Yeah, Nuno. So it's just been frustrating for us. Nuno, Ryan Mason, all the interim stuff. It's been a bad time, and I do feel sorry for Conte in a way because he knows his brand of football will work eventually, and he's saying we need patience because he hasn't got the players there yet to do it. And I want him to just change it about a bit, try a different formation, but I do also get that once he gets the players that he wants, we will be a more dominant force. So I understand it. It's just frustrating to watch because once he gets those players, he'll be fine. And he can't play a different system, get the players in he then wants, and then change the system because it will take time for all those players to then get used to another new system. So I get it. It's just difficult. We're in a crappy situation, but somehow we're still in the top 4. Like, how does that even happen? But then just talking about Conte at the weekend, he did look more himself. He was jumping about on the touchline, more fiery, celebrating the goals. At Milan, he looked like a man that had admitted defeat before we'd even kicked off in the game. Very strange. I think the club have been great with him, allowing him all this time off and not replacing him. And I think he's appreciative of that. He never talks badly about the club. he words things wrong, saying that Tottenham to finish in the top four is like somebody else winning the Premier League, which is wrong. That gets on our side. So I think someone just needs to talk to him about how he speaks in his press conferences. I still don't think he's the manager that I want at this club, because I like watching great football. I would rather finish fifth and win an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup than finish in the top four every year, playing a breed of football that I don't believe in. I don't enjoy watching. That's just how I see it. But do I think he's a great manager? Yes, I do. I'm not saying he's not. He's just not the manager for me. That's very selfish. He might be the manager to take Tottenham to the next level, but for me personally, he's not what I want. But let's not forget the fact that he's had a very tough year. He's lost 3 people very close to him in the footballing world, one of them being a coach at Tottenham. His family in Italy, because his daughter was doing exams and stuff. He's also had surgery, rushed himself back too quickly, then had to take more time off. So it's a difficult one. But yeah. Now let's talk about where we are in the league. So that win obviously leaves us 4th. So if we look at points at the moment, Manchester United are on 50 points in 3rd. We are in 4th place on 48 points. Newcastle on 44 points. Then Liverpool below them on 42. And Brighton on 39. Now, any of those teams can finish in 4th place. And I think even Fulham can still finish there. But they're starting to drift away now with their results. So I was sitting there working it out. On level games, if everybody wins their games in hand, so we are the only team in there that have played 27 games. If Man United win theirs, they'll go on to 53 points. Newcastle, if they win both theirs, they go on to 50 points, so they will leapfrog us. Brighton will go level with us on points, and then Liverpool will drop into 7th. So the way that would then look is Man United 3rd, Newcastle 4th, Tottenham 5th, Brighton 6th and Liverpool 7th. That's the way it will look if we win our games in hand. But if we look now at the teams we've got left to play, and I've kind of, you can see there I've put little, coloured it in, put lines for it, and colour coded it based on, what I think is going to happen. And actually, when I've worked it out, I think probably we're all going to finish in the positions that we're currently in. So that will see us get top 4. So our run-in is Southampton, then we go, that's away, Everton away, home to Brighton, that'll be a big game, home to Bournemouth, away to Newcastle, massive game, home against Man United, massive game, Liverpool away, massive game, then we've got Palace at home, Villa away, Brentford at home, and then we finish the season with Leeds away. So in there, I've put that we should beat Southampton, Everton, Bournemouth, Palace, Villa, Brentford and Leeds, which gives us a total of 21 points there. I also think that we can push ourselves over Brighton. We beat them in the away fixture 1-0. I think we'll beat them at home, so that's 24 points. And then Newcastle and Man United, I would love to say that we're going to beat them, but, let's say we get a draw in both of them games and then possibly lose the game away at Liverpool, because they're going to have a resurgence properly at some point. So that would give us 26 points. That would be enough for us to finish on 74. I think Man United will probably pick up 28 points, leaving them on 78. But there's some big games for these teams. So they're running Man United. They've got Newcastle away, Brentford and Everton at home, Forest away, Chelsea at home, us away, Villa at home, West Ham away, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away and Fulham at home. Newcastle... Man United have also got Brighton away to be fit in there somewhere. That's been postponed because of the cup games. Then you've got Newcastle, they're running. They need to get a fixture in against Brighton, which will be a home game. Forest away, Man United at home, West Ham, Brentford and Villa all away. Tottenham at home, Everton away, Southampton and Arsenal at home, Leeds away, Leicester at home, Chelsea away. They've got some massive fixtures still to play. Like their toughest ones in there, Brighton, Man United, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, massive teams left to play. Liverpool have got Fulham at home, City, and Chelsea away. They've got a real tough period after the Fulham one's postponed. So their next 3 Premier League games after the international break will be City away, Chelsea away, and Arsenal at home. So by that time, we could have a decent gap on them, which should give us the confidence to just push on. Then they've got Leeds away, Forest at home, West Ham away, then us at their place, Brentford at home, Leicester away, Villa at home, and then they finish the season with Southampton away. So they've got a real tricky period coming up soon that could put them out of it. Then Brighton, their run-in is Newcastle away. That's a game that needs to be rearranged. Palace at home, Man United at home, Brentford at home, Bournemouth away, us away, Chelsea away, City at home. So that's 3 massive ones on the bounce as well. Forest away, Wolves at home, Everton at home, Arsenal away, Southampton at home, and Villa away. So actually, of that run-in, I think we've kind of got the more favourable fixtures, it looks like to me. Us and Man United, I think, have got the better run-in. We've got the tough teams are kind of compact into the middle period of it, and we've got easier teams either side. However, there's so many teams in the relegation scrap, so let's just take a quick look at that to show you how tight it is. You've got Palace in 12th spot, and then it goes Wolves, Forest, Everton, Leicester, West Ham, Bournemouth, Leeds and Southampton in 20th spot. 5 points separate all of them. And the way it is at the bottom, if Southampton were to win their next game, that lifts them out of it. I think Everton are in a pretty bad position. They've played the joint most amount of games like alongside us. So they could easily get swept right back into it. Leicester at the moment have got the worst form. They've lost their last 4 games on the bounce. So in the form table, they are the worst at the moment. But any of them can go down. That's all it takes. 2 fixtures and, you know, any of them teams can be straight back in there. Palace are on a really bad run of form. Wolves just don't seem to like scoring goals. Forest are terrible away. Everton, they're kind of very hit and miss. They're just getting used to Sean Dyche and what he wants from them. Leicester, bad run of form. West Ham just can't seem to dig themselves out of this hole. Bournemouth, you know, they put the performance in against Liverpool, but again, a very hit and miss team. Leeds, I mean, God knows what's happening with them. And Southampton, it's tight. Put your comments below. Who do you think is going to go down? It's really difficult. You know, any of them are just 2 games away from being pushed right back down there. So tight. But this is the Premier League at the moment. The standard is so good. And I think this is what made us look bad. We think we're having a really bad season, but we're actually 3 points better off now than we were by match day 27 last season. You know, put that into perspective. We think we're having a bad season, and last season we were quite happy towards the end, and we're 3 points better off. So is it that teams are doing worse, or is it the fact that the teams further down the league are actually improving? Because it's so tight. To think you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 teams. 5 points separate them. And then you look at the top end of the table, Brighton on 39 points, Manchester United on 50 points. But if Brighton win all their games in hand, that takes them on to 48 points. So actually, and if Man United lose that game, you would then see Brighton in 7th place, only 2 points off of 3rd. Now, Man City and Arsenal are the only teams that have kind of pushed themselves on to, you know, create a little bit of a gap there. And that's because Man United allowed them to kind of do that recently. But even they have had their moments where they look like at any point they could drop. You know, we were looking that Man City were going to overtake Arsenal. Then Man City slipped up and then Arsenal took the initiative there. So the Premier League is tight. There's only a few teams in the Premier League, really, that you would say aren't going to get a European spot, that aren't going to fall into the relegation scrap. There's very few of them. We're talking about like your Brentfords and your Fulhams. Teams like that. It's very, very tight in there. And the standard of the Premier League is incredible. So many foreign players are happy to come to the league and play for any club, no matter whether they're the top or the bottom, which has made it way more competitive and interesting. And it's very interesting. It means there's more competition every single year. We're not like these other leagues that are the top European leagues where only 2 to 3 teams compete for anything. Every team is capable of beating every team within this league. So there you have it. Let me know what you think on that one. Comments about what you think of the game. What do you think of Conte's reaction? Were you happy or unhappy with Richarlison coming out publicly, talking in the way he has? How do you feel about the Arnaut Danjuma situation? Who do you think is going to go down? And who do you think is going to get that third and fourth spot in the Premier League? Put your comments below for me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It takes 2 seconds to just push that like button. Thank you so much for sticking around. I have been Kieran from Speaking Spurs. And until next time, come on you Spurs.